There's been a lot of interest on my channel from people about stories of intimate partner homicide victims, and I would love to be somebody who brings those stories to you. So today we're going to do that. We're going to look at Jessica and Robert Dapolito, and also Michelle and Tom Masse, and also Patrick and Kelly Dapolito. This whole family has experienced tremendous pain and tremendous loss. And I've been watching the news for a little while to see if they were going to report more details, but news has a tendency to report somebody was murdered. There it is, and then be done. They don't do a very good job of actually telling you about the person or the people involved. So I don't have a ton of information because I wasn't able to find a ton of information, but I did include at the end of this video most of the posts that Jessica put on Facebook in the last month of her life, because I feel like maybe that tells a story. So first we're going to look at these different couples and their situations, and then we'll spend a little bit of time in Jessica's Facebook mind. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. My name is April Hardy, and this is the channel where we talk about all things domestic violence, particularly surviving it and thriving after it. So initial news reports have Jessica Dapolito, who was 42, shot and killed by Robert Dapolito, who was 55. They were found on the morning of January 25th, 2021. I just saw something that suggested that maybe they actually died the night of January 24th, but I don't know for sure. So one or the other. There was a welfare check that was called in the morning of January 25th around 9:40 a.m. Police were called to do a welfare check. It was then that they found the bodies of a man and a woman in the home, which they were later able to identify as Jessica and Robert. Jessica and Robert were not married, but they had been together for 23 years. In that amount of time, Jessica changed her name legally to Dapolito, and they had 2 sons, and they left behind a grandson also. Some of the things that I read said that they both worked at the same social service organization for a while. I got the impression that maybe they were working with kids in some type of a mental health capacity. I don't know to what extent, but something that I read said that they had helped a lot of kids. Now for Jessica, according to her Facebook page, she attended Bidford High School. Jessica was described very beautifully by an aunt, Suzanne, as a wonderful, kind, good-hearted person. She talked about how Jessica liked to garden and enjoyed playing in the dirt, and she said that she will remember her as incredibly kind with a heart of gold, and that Jessica will be incredibly missed. And as I have gone through and looked at different people's Facebooks in connection with this family, I can see that that's true. And it's a testament to the fact that, yes, Robert killed Jessica, and then he killed himself. But the ripple effects that happen, that go out from these tragedies, affect so many more people than just people directly involved. And it's really heartbreaking. There is a GoFundMe page that was created for Jessica. I'm not sure what the connection is between the woman that created it and the family, but that is established. I will leave that link in the description box below, and also the original police report. 3 years ago, in 2018, almost to the day, January 9th, 2018, Jessica's parents, Thomas, Alan Masse, and Michelle Madeline Gindren Masse of Temple, Maine, died almost the same way. Tom shot Michelle to death and then called 911 and told police that he was going to shoot himself. Local law enforcement showed up, weren't able to get him on the phone. They tried calling him repeatedly. Mid-morning they brought in more deputies and state troopers, and the state police tactical team and crisis negotiators were brought in by 12:30, and they still weren't able to get any response from the home. They did enter the home, and they found Michelle's body in a bathtub with a gunshot wound, and then Tom's body in a chair in the living room with the firearm next to him with a gunshot wound. And both were deceased.
Michelle worked at the Colonial Valley Motel in Farmington. Staff there would only say they're heartbroken.
Kelly Winslow Dapolito was shot and killed by her husband, Patrick Dapolito, when she was 30 years old and he was 39. The couple had been married for about 6 months at the time of the killing. Initially, Patrick's story was that his gun, had accidentally discharged at some point when they were sleeping on the bathroom floor after a drug binge. He said that he had been on a cocaine binge and that she had taken some prescription painkillers called Oxycontin, and they fell asleep on the bathroom floor together. Patrick later changed his story, saying that drug dealers had come into the house and killed her in retribution. The Portland Press-Herald quotes prosecutors as saying that Dapolito changed his story because evidence didn't match his story. The court documents showed Dapolito initially told police that he had a gun in his hand and had no idea how it went off. So what happened in this situation? First of all, of the three couples, this one was the best picture that there was domestic violence involved as far as what the press showed. There was established domestic violence in this relationship. He had beat Kelly before with a pool stick, and he had burned the top of her hand with a cigarette. Those were documented cases of domestic violence in their 6-month marriage. It was also reported that the two argued every day. I'm not sure where they got that information, but it was in the police affidavit. Assistant Attorney General Lisa Marchese, I think maybe is how you say that, said, "Frankly, we don't believe this was an accident." And I don't either. I agree wholeheartedly. The police were actually notified about the murder by Patrick's lawyer. They were notified about the murder by Patrick's lawyer because he shot her and then he wrapped her body in a blanket and in plastic and put her in a freezer in their basement so that his daughter wouldn't see it. And then 2 days later, he used his older brother's pickup truck to transport Kelly's body to his parents' house, which was 80 miles away, and apparently they were gone traveling somewhere. And then he called an attorney, and then the attorney called the police and notified them of this accidental shooting that had happened. According to documentation, Dapolito spent the next several minutes talking to Kelly, telling her that he would be back to get her in a few days when he was dropping her off at her body off at his parents' house. The affidavit said that he also prayed and cried during this time. Before or after he called his attorney, I don't know. But when police found Kelly's body, a pair of handcuffs was attached to her wrist. And Patrick told police that his wife liked to be handcuffed to him at night because it made her feel secure. I've been in domestic violence situations quite a bit in my life, and I can't say that I have ever wanted to be handcuffed to my abuser because it would make me feel more secure. A little more light was shed because Kelly's 14-year-old daughter told detectives that Kelly was afraid of him and that she had wanted to leave him, but she was scared. And police had attempted to serve Dapolito with a protection order for that daughter, that 14-year-old, the day after the shooting, but he wasn't home. So this little girl was scared. This young woman was scared. She was aware of what was going on in this relationship. And I believe that Kelly was wanting out. And that's generally when people are in the most danger. And just because there wasn't as telling of signs that there was domestic violence going on in the other relationships as there was in Kelly and Patrick's, I don't believe that there wasn't. Domestic violence, in case you haven't watched any of my other stuff, does not just include beating. Like, that's a part of it. It can be a part of it, physical assault. But there is also coercive control, which is huge and much more common in domestic violence situations. You may or may not have physical assault, but you will have coercive control because the abuser in the situation believes that they own you. They have rights to you to some extent or another, and they will control you. That's just a part of their wiring. So coercive control, physical assault, sexual abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse, all of those things can and do encompass domestic violence. In Kelly's situation, there was some documented physical abuse, and unfortunately, after the fact, when police were able to talk to her daughter, she was able to corroborate that there was fear and that Kelly knew that it was a bad situation and wanted out. That wasn't the case for Tom and Michelle. And I don't know how much that was the case with Jessica and Robert, but as you're going to maybe be able to see, as I was able to see in what she put on her Facebook in the last month of her life, it was apparent to me that Jessica was coming out of some serious pain. And obviously I don't know what the circumstances were for all of the pain and loss that she was talking about, but it really seemed like she was trying to build herself up. And that can be dangerous in the sense that if Robert felt like if she built herself up, he might lose her, that may have been part of what caused this tragic circumstance. Maybe not. Unfortunately, in these situations, in these intimate partner homicides, just like in the domestic violence itself, a lot of times the people that know the most, obviously the people that know the most, are the people in the couple. And a lot of times there's so much information that nobody else knows. We can speculate. I can know based on what I know about intimate partner homicide and what I know about intimate partner violence in general, that this is what this looks like to me. That doesn't mean that this is what it is. What it is 100% is that there are 3 women in this family that are dead that shouldn't be. And there are 2 men in this family that are also dead, and I find it not a little ironic that the first one didn't die and is in prison probably for the rest of his life, and the other 2 didn't want to go there, so they're not. In one of the documents that I read, there was somebody that was quoted as saying, Tom was a funny and loving husband, father, and grandfather. Michelle a loving mother and grandmother. This tragedy has shocked the family, and I'm sure that it did. In my book, I start the chapter on domestic violence with listing just a little bit of this Twitter campaign that was out for a while that was called #AndSoIStayed. And people were listing why they stayed with their abuser. And one of the significant reasons in there, and the way that domestic violence is played out in general, is that this person is not bad all the time. If they were a monster all of the time, you wouldn't have any trouble leaving, but they're not. And even the cycle of domestic violence, at least initially, it is a building process, an explosion process, and then like this honeymoon phase where they go back to being this nice person that you fell in love with, and then it starts building again. But without that nice period of time, people wouldn't stay. It's this strategic element to domestic violence. They're not bad all the time. They're not a bad person all the time. In fact, many of them are very charming and funny and sweet when they want to be. And that's part of the shock and awe for a victim, because they're so different in these 2 different opposing circumstances. One is super sweet and loving and fantastic, and the other one is like Satan. And you're like, how can these both exist in the same person? and you're so in love with that good side, and you just want for that good side to come back, and it does, at least initially. Now, further on in the cycle, they don't necessarily have to do that as much. The more that the dominance is established for both of you, the less that side has to be used, but it's not uncommon. And then a lot of times family and friends, they don't see that bad stuff. They see that charming, fantastic person. And it is so much mental screwery for everybody. I am praying for this family. I know there's so much devastation there, and nobody would have chosen that. You know, people that are here are forced to pick up the pieces, and they're forced to go on not knowing everything. That's hard. They're forced to go on missing people that they love, the man and the woman. That's hard. Jessica and Robert's little grandson is not going to get to grow up knowing his grandparents, and that's hard. I included a picture of him in the Facebook pictures because Jessica did. It is clear that she loved him. I included a quote about what she saw for herself for 2021, and I'm going to end it with one of several comments from people who are hurting at this loss. Praying for the family. I hope that the boys get some professional help to be able to learn different ways of coping and stuff, because obviously other people in their family didn't have those, and that can help out a lot. It's just a tragic video, but these people deserve to have their stories told. They deserve to be remembered. Jessica Michelle, Kelly, they deserve to be remembered. If you are afraid for your life, please reach out for help. Contact the National Domestic Violence Center. The number one sign that your life is in danger is that you're afraid that your life is in danger. Don't ignore it. Don't wait. Reach out for help. Until I see you again, stay safe.